Your sins bars you from entering heaven. Your only shot is to crack a joke to gain entry. Which one do you tell? 3 men died and arrived at the pearly gates for judgment. Street. Peter tells them that the rules have changed and they can only be let into heaven now if they had a really bad death. He then proceeds to get their stories one at a time. The first man explains, I live on the 25th floor of my apartment building. I came home from work early today because I suspected my wife was cheating on me. There she was, naked at the day she was born. I look around and spot 2 hands gripping the balcony. There's a man hanging from my balcony in just his underwear, 25 floors above the ground. I step on the bastard's fingers. He won't let go. I bite his fingers. He wouldn't let go. Finally I grab a hammer. That did the trick and he fell. But then the lucky bastard landed in some bushes and survived. So I yanked the fridge loose, shoved it over the balcony, and it landed directly on the bastard. But I'm afraid all that exertion gave me a heart attack, so here I am. Street. Peter decided that was a bad enough death and let him in, then proceeded to get the second guy's story. The man looked quite confused. I live on the 26th floor of my apartment building. I work the night shift, so I wake up in the early afternoon. I had just woken up and was doing my exercises on my balcony when I slipped. But thank God, I caught the railing on the balcony below mine. I was saved. There I was, hanging 25 floors above the ground, when suddenly this crazy man came out screaming. He stepped on my fingers. I held on. He bit my fingers. I held on still. But then the bastard grabbed a hammer. I couldn't handle that, and I let go. Just as I expected to die, I landed in some bushes and lived. It was a miracle. As I started to thank God for letting me live, this fridge just falls out of the sky and lands on me. So here I am. Street. Peter decided that was definitely a bad death and lets him in. Then he asks the last guy for his story. This man also looked confused. Picture this. Here I am, hiding naked inside a fridge. A man and a woman were driving on their way to their wedding when they got in an accident and were both killed instantly. Now they are both up at the pearly gates and they say to Street, Peter, we were just about to get married. Do you think we can have our wedding in heaven? Street. Peter says, I don't know. Wait here and I'll go find a priest and ask him. So the couple is sitting there on a bench, waiting and waiting for what must have been several days, which gave them plenty of time to talk and think. What if the marriage doesn't work? But do you think we can get divorced in heaven? I guess we'll have to ask Street. Peter when he gets back. Finally Street. Peter comes back, looking pretty frazzled, and says, okay, I just found a priest, and he said he will let you have your wedding. One of them asks, we were just wondering, can we get divorced if it doesn't work out? Street. Peter lets out a huge sigh and says, listen you two, it took me several days just to find a priest in heaven. Do you have any idea how long it's going to take me to find a lawyer? A bus carrying only ugly people crashes into an oncoming truck and everyone inside dies. They then get to meet their maker, and because of the grief they have experienced, he decides to grant them one wish each before they are let in the pearly gates. They're all lined up, and God asks the first one what the wish is. Slurring his words out of a misshapen mouth, he says I want to be gorgeous, and so God snaps his fingers, and boom, he's gorgeous. The second one in line hears this, and says I want to be gorgeous too. Another snap of his fingers and the wish is granted. This goes on for a while, but when God is halfway down the line, the last guy in line hears everyone else's wish and starts laughing. Finally, God reaches this guy and asks him what his wish will be. The guy comes down and says, make him all ugly again. 3 friends all died together in a car accident. When they got to heaven, an angel met them and said, welcome to heaven. Here we only have one rule, don't step on a duck. All 3 friends started giggling. The first friend asked what happens if we step on a duck. The angel responded, if you step on a duck, you will northeast chain to the ugliest person you can imagine for the rest of eternity. The first friend laughed and took a step forward. Out of nowhere a duck ran towards his foot and got stepped on. Before he knew it, an angel appeared with the ugliest person he had ever seen and chained the two together. The second friend, after seeing what just happened, started walking very carefully, but soon he was distracted by heaven's glory and stepped on a duck, and he was chained to the ugliest person he had ever seen. The third friend, not want to suffer the same fate, decided he would never lift his feet. So he dragged his feet on the ground, never lifting a foot. Centuries pass, and he still never lifted a foot, when all of a sudden, an angel appears and chains him to the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Eyes wide in amazement, he looked at the angel and said, "Wow, what did I do to earn this?" The woman looked at him and said, "I don't know about you, but I stepped on a duck." Ever heard of a reverse exorcism? It's when the devil tells the priest to get out of the boy. 4 nuns stand at the gates to heaven upon their death. Street. Peter looks in his book and says, "Alright, sisters, it looks like you've led very good lives overall, though you each have been inappropriate with a man once in your lifetime. Because you've been such good people, I'll let you dip the part of your body that touched a man inappropriately in holy water. I'll bless it, and you can enter." The first nun walks up and dips her finger in the water. Street. Peter blesses it, and she goes in. The second nun walks up and puts both her hands in the water. Street. Peter blesses them, and she walks in. As the third nun walks up, the fourth nun says, "Hey, can I go in front of Sister Ellen? If I want to be blessed, I'll need to gargle, and I want to do that before she puts her ass in the water."